Hi, it's Katrina! Mummy and Treasure Haul. In late 2019, scientists announced the strange discovery of hundreds of animal mummies and statues at Saqqara, an ancient Egyptian burial ground or necropolis located 19 miles south of modern-day Cairo. The findings date back to the 7th century BC during the 26th dynasty. The collection contained at least 2 mummified lion cubs, marking the first ever find of a complete mummy of a small lion. Unlike mummified cats, lions are extremely rare. There were also mummies of crocodiles, cobras, and birds. Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, was proud to announce the find as a one-of-a-kind discovery. At last update, the pair, along with other mummified felines, were undergoing CT scans and other tests to find out more about them. Antiquities Minister Khaled El-Inani praised the cache of statues that were found with the mummies as a museum in itself. There are just so many things. Included among these artifacts are 75 wooden and bronze statues of animals such as cats, crocodiles, wasps, and falcons. The collection also includes a statue of Neith, the ancient Egyptian goddess of war. But one particular artifact stood out amongst the rest, a scarab statue, which is the largest in the world. This treasure haul represents one of many fascinating discoveries in recent years at Saqqara, which served as the necropolis for the ancient Egyptian capital city of Memphis for over 3,000 years. Roman Villa. Metal detectorists have struck again. Recently, some metal detector and historian enthusiasts found Roman artifacts in Wales, near the village of Rosset, so they notified the authorities. Archaeologists came and conducted a remote sensing survey of the area. They identified evidence of a buried structure, which appears to be a Roman villa, the first of its kind ever discovered in the country's northeastern region. The site consists of a central courtyard surrounded by several stone and brick structures, and is of a standard architectural style for the time period. Artifacts discovered nearby, which date back between the late 1st century and the early 4th century, indicate that the site was continuously occupied throughout most of the Roman Empire's rule in Britain. The structure's ruins bear evidence of more sophisticated architectural features than researchers previously thought existed there. Archaeologist Dr. Caroline Pudney of the University of Chester said that before this find, we thought that most people in this area either lived in settlements associated with Roman military sites or on farms that used Iron Age roundhouse architectural forms. Now, with this random villa, there is more that needs to be explained. The team plans to continue exploring the site over the next few years in hopes of making more exciting discoveries that will help to give a better understanding of the region during the era of Roman conquest. Submerged soldier. Divers and archaeologists in eastern Lithuania got quite the surprise in Lake Asveja. They came across a medieval soldier's remains 30 feet beneath the water's surface. His personal belongings, including a sword, leather boots, and 2 knives, were discovered nearby. Both the skeleton and the soldier's personal effects, which are thought to date back to the 16th century, were buried under a thick layer of mud and sand, which kept them remarkably preserved over the centuries. The underwater find, which was not a burial, was unique and the first of its kind in Lithuania, archaeologist Elena Prankinaite told LRT English. The soldier may have served in the garrison at nearby Dubingai Castle, which was once an important fortress that protected Lithuania from invaders, and he may have drowned or perished in combat. At the time the man died, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania was one of Eastern Europe's most powerful states. But the soldier's cause of death remains unidentified as his remains undergo further analysis at Vilnius University. Meanwhile, the Lithuanian National Museum is conserving his belongings to share with the public. Fossilized footprints. One day over 10,000 years ago, a small person left their footprints behind as they walked with a child in their arms along the shore of what was once Lake Otero in what is now New Mexico's White Sands National Park. The older person periodically shifted the toddler from one hip to the other throughout the nearly mile-long trek while occasionally setting the child down. Then, they dropped the little one off somewhere and returned back to wherever they came from. Evidence of the short journey survives today in the form of the pair's fossilized footprints. Isn't that cool? Discovered in 2018, the trail constitutes the longest fossilized path of human footprints ever discovered, according to the National Park Service. A study published in the journal Quaternary Science Reviews retraces the walker's steps in great detail, noting that the person carrying the child trudged through the thick, slippery mud at the impressive pace of 3.8 miles per hour, an ordeal described by researchers as exhausting. How fast can you walk? Let me know in the comments below. Each track tells a story, a slip here, a stretch there to avoid a puddle, explained study co-authors Matthew Robert Bennett and Sally Christine Reynolds. Besides the human footprints, a sloth and a mammoth crossed their path, reminding us of the wildly different environments that North America's early inhabitants lived in. Imagine going for a hike and seeing a ground sloth the size of a horse and a woolly mammoth. Very different from the landscape and wildlife we have now. The trackway was discovered among hundreds of thousands of human and animal footprints left behind between 13,000 and 11,550 years ago during the late Pleistocene epoch. Designated a mega track site in 2014, the former shore of Lake Otero contains the world's largest collection of Ice Age fossilized footprints. This discovery highlights how something as simple as a path of footprints helps to bring the past to life, giving us a better understanding of the people who came before us. Ancient Beech Forest. In late August, amid a summer of tempestuous weather, Storm Francis ravaged Wales, bringing heavy rain and unprecedented winds as it hit the coast. As the waters receded from the beach, it carried sand away from the coast, exposing the petrified tree stumps of a prehistoric forest. Numerous legends swirl around these ancient petrified forests, including tales of a lost sunken kingdom called the Sunken Hundred, which allegedly disappeared underwater thousands of years ago. According to legend, the kingdom was lost when the guardian of the sea forgot to close the gates. The ancient trees appeared 15 miles south of Borth, where the beaches are also covered in stumps that were revealed by storms in 2014 and 2019. Sometime between 4,500 and 6,000 years ago, the trees at Borth stopped growing and were covered in seawater and marshland. Researchers are working to determine the age of the stumps, which will help them figure out if the stumps are part of a continuous forest with the trees at Borth, or if they became consumed by the sea at a different time. These events are exciting but alarming to scientists, who see the exposed stumps as more evidence of climate change processes that have been going on for a very long time, and they are noticing that these drastic changes are happening more often. Storms are happening more and more and having a stronger and stronger impact. Earliest bow and arrow. Situated directly below the Indian subcontinent in the Indian Ocean, the island nation of Sri Lanka is home to South Asia's oldest Homo sapiens fossils. Evidence suggests that people arrived in Sri Lanka tens of thousands of years ago, challenging the long-held theory that tropical rainforests were a barrier to migration for humans during the Pleistocene epoch. In a study published earlier this year, an international team of experts described a collection of artifacts found in a rainforest cave in Fa Hien Lina that they believe reflect the earliest bow and arrow use outside Africa. Dating back roughly 48,000 years, the items consist of 130 bone arrowhead tips, which were likely used for catching fast-moving prey. The previous earliest evidence of bow and arrow hunting in Southeast Asia dates back roughly 32,000 years. Other bone tools indicate that people may have crafted nets and clothing, contradicting the theory that early humans innovated according to needs associated with their environments. Simply put, researchers have long believed that humans started making clothing in response to cold weather, but the discovery of possible textile-making tools in a hot and humid environment suggests otherwise. It might not have been cold, but honestly, who wants to be naked in the jungle? I would try to make some sort of textile clothing too, just to not get eaten alive by mosquitoes. These groundbreaking discoveries highlight the historical tendency for experts to overlook certain environments, including tropical rainforests, in their attempts to trace the origins of early technological innovations. Muddy statues of Cairo. Recently, archaeologists unearthed an ancient statue in Egypt, though it was a real challenge getting it out. The statue was found in a muddy sewer near Heliopolis, a central location for worshipping the ancient Egyptian sun god, completely interred underneath layers of mud. But this wasn't just any statue. A German-Egyptian archaeological team discovered what they think is a statue of King Ramses II, also referred to as Ramses the Great, and Ozymandias to the Greeks, who was arguably the mightiest of all of ancient Egypt's rulers. The site of this discovery was one of the most important locations for ancient Egyptian religion as well. Heliopolis was the central place where ancient Egyptian cult members prayed to their god, who was at various points identified with Atum, and then Ra and Horus. Nowadays, Heliopolis is in danger of being destroyed, due in part to rising water levels and fast development. Right next to the site is what is considered a slum, with a large garbage dump, so archaeologists are worried artifacts underneath might be lost forever. If it actually is Ramses, then this would be one of the biggest archaeological finds in recent history. Officials also found another part of a statue in the same location, which appears to depict Ramses' grandchild, Seti II, who was also a pharaoh. Now, the broken-down statue brings to mind the world-famous poem Ozymandias, written by Percy Shelley, reminding us of the fleeting nature of power. Even the most powerful man in the world was, in the end, a mortal being. Haitian Phoenix Button. While metal detecting with his friend on a Puget Sound beach in June of this year, Washington State resident and tugboat worker Phil Massey discovered a Haitian Phoenix button, dating back to the 19th century. The brass object, which Massey unburyed from about 6 inches underground, had French text and an image of a bird. Manufactured for King Christophe of Haiti by an English producer during the early 1800s, Phoenix buttons were used as military uniform buttons. The French motto on the buttons translates to, "I am reborn from my ashes," according to archaeologist Doug Wilson of the National Park Service at the Fort Vancouver National Historic Site, who further explained that roughly 1,000 Phoenix buttons have appeared in the Pacific Northwest region over the last 150 years or so. But how do buttons from Haiti end up in Washington State? The prevailing theory of how the buttons ended up so far from Haiti asserts that after King Christophe died, an American named Nathaniel Wyatt bought the Phoenix buttons and traveled to the Pacific Northwest, where he traded them with Native Americans in exchange for furs. Red Lion Playhouse. A team of archaeologists from University College London recently announced the possible discovery of London's earliest playhouse, or theatre, in the Whitechapel district. Known as the Red Lion, the Elizabethan playhouse was built around 1567. The historical record offers little information about the venue, with 2 lawsuits from 1567 and 1569 between carpenters who worked on the playhouse and the site's proprietor, John Brain, offering the only known written clues about the structure, which reportedly had an outdoor stage and seating. With such little information to go on for so long, experts long debated over the Red Lion's location. The timber ruins that archaeologists discovered in early 2019 and what they now believe were once the Red Lion's stage match the dimensions of the structure detailed in the lawsuits, offering a hopeful clue that they're on the right track. Neanderthal technology. In the modern world, we have a strong tendency to stereotype Neanderthals as far less advanced hominids than our early ancestors, but discoveries in recent years are proving otherwise. Take, for example, a study published earlier this year in the journal Scientific Reports, which describes the discovery of evidence of fiber technology among Neanderthals. The artifact, a cord fragment made from 3 intertwined bundles of fiber, was found attached to a flint tool in a cave-like shelter in Abri-du-Mara, France. Researchers examined the cord, which dates back to sometime between 41,000 and 52,000 years ago, and determined that the fibers used in its manufacture likely came from the inner bark of a non-flowering tree. The cave in southern France where the object was found was once inhabited by Neanderthals, indicating that they created the cord. They were therefore equipped with specialized knowledge of both the plants they used and of the production techniques involved, according to the study's authors. This discovery is just the latest in a series of finds that have scientists rethinking the traditional view of Neanderthals as more or less stupid. Their lengthy existence on Earth, which lasted for hundreds of thousands of years, also points toward their capabilities. Some experts have challenged the study's assertion that Neanderthals created the cord in question, suggesting that it could have been the handiwork of early humans, who began showing up in France 40,000 years ago, around the same time Neanderthals went extinct. Regardless of whether the cord was created by Neanderthals or humans, the artifact is proof of early hominids' ability to think in more complex terms than we often give them credit for, and discoveries like this are helping to reshape our perception of our Stone Age ancestors and relatives. Ancient graves in China. In 2015, construction workers discovered ancient graves in the city of Chengdu in southwest China's Sichuan province. Excavations commenced, and in May of this year, the Chengdu Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology announced that over 6,000 tombs had been found at the site. The graves date back to several time periods and dynasties over a 2,000-year span. This place was used for a very long time. Along with the tombs, which were found on a cliff, were tens of thousands of artifacts, including pottery, Buddha statues, knives, figurines, and other items made from porcelain, copper, iron, glass, coins, and stone. The discovery will help researchers better understand the evolution of funerary customs and religious beliefs in the Sichuan region over many centuries. In an article about the findings, Archaeology World notes that the area has been associated with rebellious generals and independent empires, such as the Shu dynasty, and that it played an important role in Chinese history. The burial's undisturbed state will also come in handy for studying the past, as many ancient graves throughout China are found looted and therefore unable to give experts a complete picture of what the people's lives and deaths were like. The Vajra. A Vajra or dorje is a battle club and a symbol for the Vajrayana branch of Tibetan Buddhism. Vajra is a Sanskrit word that translates to diamond or thunderbolt, and the term is used to convey the battle club's toughness and invincibility. Dorje is the Tibetan name for the objects, which are typically made of bronze. These clubs vary in size and have 3, 5, or 9 spokes twisted into a lotus shape at the end. There are different meanings for each number of spokes and their particular arrangements. A Vajra is often used with a bell called a ganta in Tibetan rituals. The club is placed in the left hand and symbolizes the male principle of action or means called upaya, while the right hand holds the ganta, which represents prajna, the female principle of wisdom. Sometimes two dorjes are used in combination, forming a cross-like double dorje which symbolizes the physical world's foundation. Although the Vajra is widely considered a Buddhist emblem, its history is rooted in ancient Hinduism. Indra, the Hindu god of rain and sky, was represented by a thunderbolt, a symbol associated with the Vajra. The story goes that Indra was battling the evil Asuras who had removed all light and moisture from the earth, and all living things began to die. He battled the demon gods but was losing, so he called on Vishnu for help. Vishnu said only a weapon that was neither solid nor liquid could kill them, so a divine carpenter made the special weapon that shot thunderbolts. Most of the time, the prongs are open as a destructive weapon, but it is said that Buddha himself forced the prongs closed, transforming it into a peaceful scepter. Padmasambhava, an 8th century tantric master, used the club to conquer Tibet's non-Buddhist deities. There are some similarities with a weapon used by the ancient Sumerians, who also held a pronged scepter to battle demons. Goddess statue. Turkish archaeologists recently unearthed a 4,200-year-old statue of a goddess at Kultepe, the capital of the ancient kingdom of Kanesh, located roughly 12.4 miles from the central province of Kayseri. According to its discoverers, the 17-inch tall sculpture is the biggest so far from the early Bronze Age in Anatolia. Curiously, all the statues found at the site are of women. No idols of men have been found so far, excavation team leader Fikri Kulakoglu told Anadolu Agency, adding that the women's statues are naked and have a decorated throne, and there are braids on their back. Kulakoglu hailed the discovery as a very special piece that reflects the area's religious beliefs at the time it was created. It's one of 20 important artifacts that were recently found as limited excavations continue amid the coronavirus pandemic, adding to the ever-expanding number of fascinating finds throughout the world that people can look forward to seeing for themselves when life hopefully returns to normal. A Roman dagger. Last year, a 19-year-old intern named Nico Kalman unearthed what at first resembled a rusty chicken finger from the burial of a Roman soldier at the Haltern am See archaeological site in Germany. A 9-month restoration effort revealed the heavily corroded lump to be a 2,000-year-old silver dagger that was still in its sheath. It most likely belonged to a Roman soldier who used the 13-inch long weapon in war against a Germanic tribe during the 1st century. It's a perplexing discovery according to archaeologist Bettina Tremmel, who specializes in the Roman Empire. It was not the normal practice for Roman soldiers to be buried with their military equipment, she explained. There was a Roman military base at the town of Haltern am See, or Haltern at the lake, between 27 BC and 14 AD, during the Augustinian period. The soldiers who were stationed at the base, which was called Hauptlager, or main camp, were rather unlucky. In 9 AD, Germanic tribes wiped out 3 legions consisting of 5,000 Roman soldiers each at the site. Kallman found the dagger in a nearby cemetery where the fallen soldiers and their families were buried. It's one of few weapons ever found there, making its discovery surprising even to seasoned experts. The dagger likely belonged to an infantryman or an officer called a centurion, who would have used it as a backup weapon in the event of a soldier losing or damaging his sword. But why the man was buried with the weapon remains a mystery. So far, researchers' best guesses are that he originally came from a Celtic or other non-Roman tribe, or he was a Roman who had expressed that he wanted to be laid to rest with it. An ancient curse. A Canadian woman known only as Nicole recently mailed stolen artifact fragments and a confession letter to a travel agent in Pompeii, The Guardian reported in October. She admitted to stealing the 2 mosaic tiles, ceramic shard, and amphora parts 15 years ago during a visit to the historic site in southern Italy when she was in her early 20s. Nicole blamed the items for a long-running streak of misfortune, including financial hardship and 2 bouts of cancer. She clearly regretted committing the crime, which in Nicole's words was motivated by a desire to have a piece of history that nobody could have. Having learned her lesson, the reformed thief also wrote that she wanted forgiveness from God over her poor decision to take the artifacts. Nicole is far from the first person to sneak off with a piece of Pompeii's history, and she's just one of many who have returned stolen objects to their rightful place. In fact, the package Nicole sent contained some rocks and a letter from another couple who also deeply regretted taking from the tragic site. So many people have sent looted items back to Pompeii that there is even a museum dedicated to returned artifacts and the letters sent along with them. Do you think it's possible for ancient artifacts to be cursed? Maybe just if they're stolen? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd love to have you. A vanished artifact. A rare Roman stone slab discovered in Serbia in July mysteriously disappeared less than a day after it was found. The artifact, which contained engravings in Latin, was found by construction workers along a road leading to a landfill. Someone immediately contacted the National Museum in Belgrade, which dispatched an archaeologist to the site, but the slab vanished without a trace before the expert arrived. The artifact was part of a 2nd century monument dedicated to a high-ranking Roman military official. One side of the marble slab, which shows 2 feet wearing sandals, was part of a previous statue before being reused for the monument. The other side of the object contains 15 lines of Latin text describing the military official's life and accomplishments. The man led various military detachments against the Dacians and served in 3 legions, according to the National Museum in Belgrade. Having the missing slab would come in handy for experts who believe it may bear previously unknown information about a war in ancient Belgrade. The Serbian government is taking the disappearance very seriously, as evidenced by a statement from a National Museum spokesperson who informed the public that the incident was being treated as an aggravated theft, that authorities were on the lookout for it, and that anyone involved in its theft would be arrested and criminally charged. Arabian Stonehenge. Archaeological excavations are difficult to carry out in some parts of the world for various reasons, including political strife, the harshness of the environment, or a lack of funding, just to name a few possible examples. Thankfully, advanced technology, including satellite and drone imagery, are helping archaeologists make up for their inability to physically dig for artifacts. Recently, researchers spotted over 100 stone structures in the Nefu Desert that they believe constitute some of the oldest artifacts ever discovered. Thought to predate the pyramids, the ancient constructions were identified by an international team of archaeologists and other experts using high-resolution photos and Google Earth data. First, they marked places that they thought ancient humans would have used or inhabited, including sites near bodies of water and grasslands. This led the researchers to the 104 mysterious monuments that they believe may have been used as kites, which were structures that corralled wild animals into a convenient place for hunting. The team also found numerous massive geoglyphs called mustatil, which locals refer to as works of old men. Made from hundreds of thousands of tons of rock, these gigantic stone structures measure 328 feet long by 328 feet wide. It's possible that the monuments date back to sometime between 10,000 and 6,000 years ago, during the Neolithic period, when the arid desert region now known as Saudi Arabia contained grassland. Gilded Tombs. Late last year, archaeologists announced the discovery of 2 ancient Mycenaean tombs in the city of Pylos in southern Greece. Dating back some 3,500 years, the beehive-shaped tombs contained thousands of pieces of gold leaf that once covered their interior. Dubbed Tholos VI and Tholos VII, they were unfortunately looted, but still contain a plethora of valuable artifacts, including ornaments and jewelry made from imported materials such as amethyst, amber, and gold. The grave goods indicate that the people who lived in Pylos at the time had stronger connections to Egypt, the Near East, and other parts of the outside world than researchers originally thought, according to Smithsonian Magazine. There are also Minoan artifacts within the tombs, suggesting that the Mycenaeans displayed their status using borrowed objects and symbolism from their sister civilization. Archaeologists Jack Davis and Sharon Stocker are responsible for the recent discoveries, which came 3 years after the pair found the tomb of a high-status Greek man near an ancient palace in Pylos. The 3 burials date back to sometime between 1600 BC and 1500 BC, during the beginning phase of the little-understood Mycenaean civilization. Through the artifacts, archaeologists are gaining valuable insight into the lives of those who lived in the society. Despite their grand nature, many of the grave goods show surprisingly ordinary aspects of Mycenaean life, such as farming and farm animals. The most important takeaway so far is the newfound realization that the port at Pylos was likely a bustling international Bronze Age trading hub, a role that researchers have largely overlooked until now. A child's discovery. While hiking in Israel's Negev desert with his parents, a 6-year-old boy named Imri Elia spotted a small clay object and picked it up for a closer look. Realizing that the tiny 1.1-inch square was possibly of archaeological value, his parents diligently contacted the Israel Antiquities Authority as required by law. The agency rewarded Imra for his keen eye with a certificate of good citizenship. The little tablet appears to depict a naked slave being led by their captor. It's thought to be from the ancient Canaanite civilization and is estimated to be around 3,500 years old, dating back to when Egypt ruled the land of Canaan. At the time, the kings who ruled the local city-states were engaged in intense conflict, leading experts to believe that the tile was made as a badge or medal of honor to commemorate a battle victory. But Canaanite artifacts are very rare, and the best researchers can do for now is speculate regarding their purpose and story. Cryptic Egyptian box. Earlier this year, science in Poland announced the March 2019 discovery of an ancient stone chest containing a linen-wrapped sacrificial goose at Deir el-Bahri in Luxor, Egypt. Nearby, archaeologists found a chapel-shaped ceramic box called a faience, bearing a hieroglyphic inscription of Pharaoh Thutmose II's name. Inside were 2 eggs, one belonging to a goose and the other thought to be from an ibis. Based on the etching on the box, experts believe the artifacts may help lead them to the tomb of Thutmose II. The box measured roughly 15.7 inches long and slightly less in height, according to Professor Andrzej Nowinski from the University of Warsaw's Institute of Archaeology. The royal deposit indicates that a temple was established on behalf of the king, or that a king's tomb was founded, Nowinski told Science in Poland. Finding this deposit indicates that we are in the process of discovering the tomb. Thutmose II himself is not missing. His remains were found reburied at Deir el-Bahri, leaving his original resting place a mystery. The pharaoh was married to Queen Hatshepsut in what Nowinski believes was a forced marriage. He came to power at just 13 years old and passed away 3 years later. This marks the latest in a series of discoveries in recent years that are revealing Egypt's rich history and helping to bring answers to light. Tattooing tool. Washington State University archaeologists discovered the oldest tattooing tool in Western North America in early 2019. The 2,000-year-old object had spent around 40 years collecting dust in a museum storage room before it caught the attention of PhD candidate Andrew Gilreath Brown while he inventoried the university's artifacts. Discovered in Utah, the pen-shaped item is a significant discovery, according to Gilreath Brown, who said in a statement, "Tattooing by prehistoric people in the Southwest is not talked about much because there has not ever been any direct evidence to substantiate it. This tattoo tool provides us information about past southwestern culture we did not know before. A paper by Gilreath Brown and 7 colleagues that was published in March 2019 in the Journal of Archaeological Science describes the artifact, which consists of a 3.5-inch wooden handle held together by split yucca leaves and with needles made from cactus spines. Generally speaking, little is known about the past of tattooing, period, including when or why it began. Archaeologists know that it was common among religious groups and the elite, but their knowledge beyond that is extremely limited. The topic of tattooing is especially enigmatic in the American Southwest, where evidence of ancient tattoos has never been found on human remains, and the practice is not mentioned in writing. The tool is 1,000 years older than other tattooing implements found in the region, which date back between 1100 and 1280 AD. Gilreath Brown analyzed the instrument using X-ray and microscope technology, and he also tested it out on pigskin. He determined that the pigment on the needle likely contained carbon, which was commonly used in ancient tattooing. The discovery is telling because it offers potential insight on the roles tattooing played in relationships and when it came to marking one's social status. Bronze Age Hoard. When amateur metal detectorist Marit Stepien discovered a Bronze Age treasure hoard in Peebles, Scotland, he literally shook with happiness. This was even before learning it was one of the most significant finds of its type ever made in the country's history. Stepien said, "I thought I've never seen anything like this before and felt from the very beginning that this might be something spectacular, and I've just discovered a big part of Scottish history." He hid a bronze object just a few feet underground. Then there was more and more. One of the most important things was a preserved horse harness made of wood and leather with rings and buckles dating back to at least 2000 BC. It was the first time we have seen how harnesses were made so long ago. The collection, which was found roughly 22 miles south of Edinburgh, consists of jewelry, the horse harness, buckles, ornaments, a 3,000-year-old sword, and more, according to authorities. Stepien was with his friends when he made the discovery, and they contacted the government's treasure trove unit immediately. They even camped out at the site throughout the 22-day excavation. The artifacts, which are now at the National Museum's Collection Centre in Edinburgh, constitute the second ever discovery of a Bronze Age treasure haul in Scotland, Treasure Trove Unit Director Emily Freeman told CNN, adding that researchers are still working to understand why the objects were left behind. Calpea. The story of Calpea begins in 1996 with the discovery of ancient human bones in a cave at the southernmost tip of Gibraltar. According to National Geographic, archaeologists found the skeleton, including a damaged skull, beneath sediment layers of fish, bird, and mammal bones, as well as flint tools. The bones ended up at the Gibraltar National Museum, where their age remained a mystery for over 2 decades. Then, in 2019, a DNA analysis identified the skull as belonging to a woman who lived in the region around 7,500 years ago. Dating back to 5,400 BC, the bones constitute the oldest modern female remains ever found in Gibraltar. Thanks to genetic analysis, we now know that the woman's ancestry originates from across the Mediterranean, far east of the Iberian Peninsula. This invaluable discovery is helping researchers trace the indescribably complex history of human migration during the spread of agriculture across Europe. The Neolithic woman, nicknamed Calpea, was brought to life through a forensic anatomical reconstruction of her face, courtesy of the Gibraltar National Museum. Computer technology helped repair the broken and missing parts of her skull. This information, combined with details gleaned from Calpea's DNA, culminated into a lifelike representation of the individual who was found as nothing more than bones. Years went by before scientists were able to successfully extract DNA from Calpea's bones, thanks to rapidly advancing technology, which is bringing us closer than ever before to a face-to-face look at our past. And now for number 9, but first, it's giveaway time! I wanted to give a big thank you to all of you who are watching and supporting Origins Explained. We are actually having a giveaway right now! Winners will be able to choose a t-shirt from our Origins Explained merch. All you have to do is be subscribed and leave a comment with #OriginsFam to let me know you want to participate. Check the description box and pin comment below for more information. Ancient savings. In October of this year, archaeologists conducting routine excavations in Jerusalem prior to the construction of an elevator discovered a small 1,000-year-old jug containing 4 gold coins. Yevgenia Kapil, an inspector with the Israel Antiquities Authority, found the clay vessel, which is barely larger than a coffee cup, near the Western Wall Plaza in the historic Old City area. When excavation director David Gelman turned the cup over a few weeks later, the 4 coins fell out. This is the first time in my career as an archaeologist that I have discovered gold, and it is tremendously exciting, Gelman said in a recently released statement. The coins all dated back between 940 and 970 AD, making it easy for researchers to determine the discovery's age. At the time, the surrounding region was undergoing major political changes, which are reflected in the coins' designs. 2 of the coins were minted in central Israel between 946 and 961, under the leadership of Sunni Caliph al-Muti, while the other 2 were manufactured in Cairo under Shiite ruler al-Mu'izz. The stash, which represents the first gold cache from the Fatimid period found in Israel's Old City in over a half-century, may have been just a portion of someone's wealth or their entire savings, explained IAA coin expert Robert Kuhl. 4 dinars was a considerable sum of money for most of the population, who lived under difficult conditions at the time, Kuhl said in a statement. It was equal to the monthly salary of a minor official, or 4-month salary for a common laborer. Giant prehistoric animals. Venezuela might be famous for its oil reserves, but there are other valuable items that sit beneath the soil's surface. Thousands of prehistoric fossils have turned up in surveys conducted by oil companies, including an ancestor of the modern armadillo the size of a Volkswagen Beetle called a glyptodon, a saber-toothed tiger, a crocodile bigger than a bus, a 10-foot pelican, an iguana-like featherless chicken, and an Ice Age mastodon. Additionally, scientists have uncovered the remains of giant sloths who lived in the ground in burrows rather than in trees like their modern counterparts. They were also huge with enormous claws. The collection of around 12,000 fossils dates from 14,000 to 370 million years ago. Most were found north of the Orinoco River, where the Atlantic Ocean formed 200 million years ago. Ascania Rincon, head of the Laboratory of Paleontology at the Venezuelan Institute for Scientific Research, wants to search for prehistoric human fossils in the area and to simply continue preserving as many remnants of ancient creatures as possible. They have found many new prehistoric species, but haven't revealed what they are yet. Preparing fossils for official classification is a painstaking process that requires cleaning sediment, transporting the goods, and washing them before comparing them with similar specimens. This demanding but important work has the paleontologist and his colleagues racing against the clock with a very small budget. Pompeiis New Treasures. The ancient Roman ruins of Pompeii keep revealing more and more secrets. Even though it was discovered several centuries ago in 1748, new things are constantly being uncovered. Earlier this year, archaeologists announced the first major discovery of a treasure trove of artifacts at the site in over a half-century as part of what's called the Great Pompeii Project. The excavations encompassed a small area called Region 5, which includes 2 houses known as the House of the Garden and the House of Orion. Among the finds are vibrantly colored frescoes, mosaics, and murals, coins, amulets, horses, and human remains. One particularly intriguing discovery consists of graffiti scrawled across a wall by a worker, stating the date, October 17th, along with a joke to the effect of he ate too much. This bolsters the theory of some scholars that the volcanic eruption that buried Pompeii in 79 AD happened in October rather than August, as some historians have said. Additionally, archaeologists found signs of survivors in the form of cartwheel tracks left behind by those frantically fleeing the city. Others were not so lucky. In November of this year, archaeologists revealed the exceptionally well-preserved remains of 2 men who were killed by the eruption. One was a man of high status, with the remains of a woolen cloak under his neck. The other is believed to have been his slave due to a number of crushed vertebrae, indicating that he did heavy labor. The men's teeth and bones were preserved, and they were most likely trying to escape when they were hit by a thermal shock by the volcano and were basically vaporized. The archaeologists filled the voids left behind with plaster to make a cast of their human form. Then they were excavated to show the outline of their bodies. There are more artifacts waiting to be discovered at Pompeii, 1/3 of which remains unexplored. Even after all is said and done, experts will likely never know exactly how many people perished in the tragic eruption, although they estimate the death toll at around 2,000 out of 15,000 residents. Roadside Stash. In June of this year, metal detectorists from a historical and exploration association in Poland found over 500 17th century silver coins in Elk. The goods were discovered during a survey of a construction site, and good thing the law requires a search before digging commences. The 507 coins originate from various European countries, including Poland, Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Scotland. There are varying denominations and date back to the first half of the 17th century and were buried in a clay pot. Archaeologists found the treasure trove beneath a pile of debris. The most recent coin is dated to 1652, indicating that someone, possibly an innkeeper, local merchant, or soldier, buried the hoard around then. At the time, the area was part of the Prussian Duchy and was situated along a major trade route between Königsberg, modern-day Kaliningrad, Russia, and the historic Masovia region in northeastern Poland. Researchers do not know who the coins belong to or why the person hid them for safekeeping, but the decision makes sense given the turbulent nature of the period. Egypt's biggest discovery of the year. Over the last several months, archaeologists have unearthed over 100 and counting sealed wooden mummy-filled coffins at Saqqara, the ancient Egyptian burial ground south of modern-day Cairo. In a recent statement, Secretary General Mustafa Waziri of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities stated that people are asking how many coffins did we find. The answer is, I don't know yet. They are very excited. See, not everything is terrible this year, I guess. In early September, archaeologists had unearthed just 13 coffins. At the beginning of October, the tally was up to 59. The mummies were priests, according to hieroglyphics on their vibrantly painted sarcophagi, most of which date back between 688 BC and 525 BC, during Egypt's 26th dynasty, although some are from as recent as the 1st century BC. Additional artifacts at the site include funerary masks and 40 statues of the deity Ta-Soker, who is a combination of Ta, the god of Memphis, and Soker, the god of Saqqara. These archaeological treasures sat untouched for over 2 millennia, a significant and rare discovery in a region where valuable sites are often looted. A Smithsonian Channel docuseries called Tomb Hunters will detail the findings and is scheduled to air next year, so stay tuned. Antique coin hoard. Last month, South Carolina couple and new homeowners James and Clarissa Munford stumbled upon literal treasure when they moved into their new home. Turns out there were dozens of antique gold and silver coins in the built-in drawers of a closet. Who forgets that? Always check your drawers when you move, or if you travel. Contained within 2 cases were 45 gold Liberty $5 coins and 18 Morgan silver dollars minted during the 19th century, worth thousands of dollars now. They looked real old, like they were really worth a lot of money, James told CNN. The couple, who are both Army veterans and recent retirees, did the noble thing and returned the hoard to the previous homeowners. I was just thinking, they're not mine, said James. They're probably a family heirloom, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure he gets them back. The coin's value was a non-factor in the decision to get them back to their rightful owner, according to Clarissa, who explained that the couple did not even think about what they might be worth when deciding to return them. The previous homeowner had forgotten about the stash, which he estimated as worth around $25,000. He was grateful to the Munfords, who he admitted could have probably sold the coins without him noticing, and offered the couple one key piece of advice when he went to pick up the hoard: that there's no telling what else you might find in the house. Maybe more treasure? Hopefully nothing creepy. Shipwrecked Treasure. Earlier this year, 43-year-old treasure hunter and metal detectorist Jonah Martinez discovered a trove of coins along Florida's Treasure Coast, very properly named. The collection of Spanish currency is worth an estimated $6,000 and consists of 22 silver coins dating back to a 1715 shipwreck. On July 31st of that year, 12 treasure-laden Spanish galleons encountered a brutal hurricane, and 11 of the vessels went down. Martinez, who had been metal detecting in South Florida for over 24 years, was with his friends when he made the spectacular find. "You don't know what you're going to find," Martinez told CBS 12 News, adding that he and his buddies are not primarily motivated by the prospect of hitting it big financially. "We are not trying to profit out here, we're just collecting pieces of history. That's cool if you ask me." I agree with him, don't you? The lucky finder said he did not plan to sell the coins, but to instead set them aside with other treasures he's found over the years. To this day, most of the treasure from the 11 wrecked ships remains underwater. Bronze Age treasure. A so-called groundbreaking collection of artifacts dating back to the Bronze and Iron Ages was declared treasure earlier this year in Shropshire, England. The 5 hoards found at the site consist primarily of tools, according to Bronze Age specialist Pete Reville, who spoke with the BBC, stating all are prehistoric finds and really important to the story of Shropshire. One batch of tools dating back between 750 BC and 650 BC contains an extremely rare assortment of both bronze and iron axe heads. Reville added that this was the first time tools from both periods were discovered together in Britain. With iron axes of this period, they are basically learning how to use the metal, he explained. Another hoard consists of 2 gold rings inside a lead ingot, constituting one of just a handful of Bronze Age lead objects ever found in the country. The artifacts were all found within a square mile of one another, leading Reville to theorize that they were left as offerings to inclement weather. Erosion caused by climate change helped to reveal the objects in 2017 and 2018, and the discoveries are helping experts better understand the everyday lives of the region's past societies. Nazi silver. During World War II, the German military used the ruins of Nauisach Royal Castle in Poland to store ammunitions and carry out executions. The 14th century structure sat next to the ghetto, where the Nazis relegated at least 20,000 Polish Jews to a hellish life of overcrowding, starvation, and forced labor. In June of this year, a team of metal detectorists from the Historical and Exploratory Association discovered a cache of 103 silver objects buried in a rusted chest at the castle. Inside the chest were Polish and Austrian silver goblets, vases, diningware, cutlery, all in pristine condition, despite the worn state of the chest they were found in. Archaeologist Bartolomew Urbanski explained in an interview with the First News that the objects were likely used in Jewish rituals. The items likely date back to the late 19th or early 20th century and were probably stolen from families' homes by the Germans, who planned to return to the burial site to retrieve them later on, but never made it back for whatever reason. Experts are conducting further studies on the objects with plans to display them in a local museum. They also continue to search for more artifacts at the castle, which Polish soldiers reclaimed in 1945. Masada. Masada is an ancient stone fortress located high above the Dead Sea, 1,300 feet above sea level. The 840-acre complex sits on a tall, isolated rock plateau in Israel, and the fortress was built between 37 and 31 BC by Herod the Great, king of Judea himself. At first, Masada served as a refuge and a winter retreat for Herod. The walled fortress was the perfect defensive place with water-filled cisterns, an armory, barracks, a palace, and more. The palace had a semicircular terrace hanging over the edge of the cliff, offering views of the surrounding areas. After Herod died and the Romans annexed Judea, they took over Masada and turned it into a garrison. In 66 AD, around 75 years after Herod's death, the Great Revolt of the Jews broke out. A group of Jewish rebels called the Sicarii took over the fortress. They held out there for 3 years, where they were joined by families fleeing Jerusalem after the city fell. Once Jerusalem was destroyed, the Romans turned to Masada to take it down. A legion of 8,000 Roman soldiers surrounded the place, where 960 rebels were holding out, including many women and children. The fortress was under siege for several months, and finally the Romans built a ramp to tear down the fortress wall. At that point, everyone inside Masada decided that they would take their own lives rather than fall into Roman hands and become slaves. When the Romans tore down the wall, the city was eerily quiet, and then they found the remains of the people. Only 2 women and 5 children survived by hiding in the cistern, who later told the Romans what had happened. It was abandoned over time for nearly 13 centuries, until it was rediscovered in 1828. Today, Masada is one of Israel's top tourist destinations and is a national park and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Gamsuto. The Russian Republic of Dagestan, located along the Caspian Sea, is home to the abandoned mountaintop village of Gamsuto. Nobody knows for sure when it was built, but it's clear by the appearance of the now crumbling ruins that the former settlement is very, very old. During the Middle Ages, Gamsuto served as a fortified castle for a nomadic ethnic group called the Avars. The village, which sits at nearly 5,000 feet above sea level, is difficult to access because it's surrounded by steep cliffs, making it an ideal place for avoiding enemies. Gamsuto thrived well into the 20th century, with a post office, school, hospital, shops, and even a road leading to the village. But people eventually began leaving in search of better economic opportunities, and Gamsuto largely cleared out around 40 years ago. The very last resident passed away in 2015, and only around 70 of the 300 original buildings remain, falling further into disrepair with time. Today, visitors are free to walk around the site as they please, as long as they are willing and able to make the challenging trek to get there. And now for number 7, but first, it's time for a giveaway. I want to give a big thank you to all of you for supporting this channel. We are having giveaways over the next few days, and winners will be able to choose a t-shirt from our Origins Explained merch. All you have to do is be subscribed and leave a comment with #OriginsExplained to let me know you want to participate. More details will be in the description box and pinned comment below. Castellon Alto. Nicknamed the Andalusian Acropolis, Castellon Alto is a Bronze Age fortified settlement on the Iberian Peninsula in southern Spain that belonged to the Archaeological culture. It dates back to around 1900 BC and is located in what is now Granada's Altiplano region. The Archaeological culture thrived between 2200 BC and 1550 BC. They are famous for their advanced expertise using bronze, especially the manufacture of weapons, as well as making pottery and ceramics. They also mined silver and gold and developed a sophisticated society. The Archaeological people buried the dead in individual graves, typically beneath the family home, rather than in communal tombs like many other societies of the time. There was a class hierarchy which was seemingly divided into upper and middle classes, as well as lower class, which was drastically less privileged than the others. Someone's social ranking was associated with which level terrace their house was situated on. The community leaders lived at the top of the settlement in an area called the Acropolis. The fortified settlement was built near the current small village of Galera. Now known as Castellon Alto, it is one of just 4 remaining Archaeological sites. Houses were cut out of the rock in a series of terraces, and each house had a low stone foundation with posts made of wood that would hold together the rest. Castellon Alto was mysteriously and suddenly abandoned around 1600 BC, after just 300 years of occupancy. The likely reason for this is the depletion of trees nearby, which the Archaeological people used for fuel and construction. Timgad. Timgad, also called Thamugadi and nicknamed the Algerian Pompeiis, was a Roman city and military settlement in Algeria's Aures Mountains. Located in what is now the province of Numidia, Timgad was founded around 100 AD by the Emperor Trajan. Built at the convergence of 6 Roman roads, it was once a thriving agricultural and commercial center. The settlement thrived for centuries, peaking in the 3rd century with a population of around 15,000. There were over a dozen baths, an impressive library, and other magnificent structures, including public buildings and the 20-foot-high Arch of Trajan. That was the good news. The bad news is that Timgad's wealth made it a prime target for invaders. The Vandals raided Timgad in 430, and subsequent attacks progressively weakened the city. It was never restored to its former glory, and during the 8th century, residents left it deserted. Today, Timgad contains some of the best preserved Roman ruins, thanks to the sands of the Sahara Desert, which buried the abandoned city, protecting its architecture for centuries. Scottish nobleman James Bruce and his team of explorers rediscovered Timgad in 1765, making them the first Europeans at the site in centuries. They uncovered and then reburied the structures, and their claims were widely disregarded and written off as outrageous by British society. Then, in 1875, British consul Robert Playfair visited the ruins at Timgad and added to Bruce's records with observations of his own. Between 1881 and 1960, the French controlled and excavated the site. Today, the city's architecture and artwork, including colorful mosaics, remain in remarkable condition, and even the ruts left behind by the heavy traffic that once traversed its streets are still visible. Cliff Palace. Located in Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado, the Cliff Palace is North America's largest cliff settlement. Occupied from 1190 to 1260 AD, it was home to an ancient Paleo-Indian people known as the Ancestral Pueblans, or the Anasazi. The sandstone dwelling consists of over 150 rooms and more than 20 sunken circles which were used for religious rituals, called kivas. It's one of over 600 cliff dwellings throughout the park nestled into the side of the mountain. Cliff Palace is the largest among them by far, with most others containing between 1 and 5 rooms. Due to its size, researchers believe the Cliff Palace served as an administrative and social center. The Cliff Palace was abandoned around 1300 and was rediscovered in 1888 by ranchers Richard Wetherill and Charlie Mason. After that, many things were stolen and taken from the site, and the place is slowly deteriorating after being exposed to the elements for so long. It's not really clear why it was abandoned, but it was most likely due to a combination of factors like drought, massive flooding, diminishing resources, and violence. After putting in that much effort into building the site, it is sad that the people were unable to use it for very long. Now it is protected by the government and is open to the public. Have you ever been here? Let me know in the comments below. La Ciudad Perdida. La Ciudad Perdida, Spanish for the Lost City, is an archaeological site situated deep in Colombia's Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta Mountains. Researchers believe that the Tairona people founded the remote mountainside settlement around 650 years earlier than the famed Machu Picchu, around 800 AD. The site, which also goes by the indigenous name of Teyuna, can only be accessed on foot via an arduous journey through the dense jungle and up some 1,200 stone steps. You have to be in pretty good shape to visit this site. It consists of several circular plazas, a series of tiled roads, and 169 carved terraces. Ciudad Perdida flourished for nearly 1,000 years before its residents succumbed to disease brought over by the Spanish, although the two cultures never clashed face to face. The diseases spread much faster than the Spanish themselves, who probably never even imagined the level of destruction they brought with them besides their weapons. A group of treasure hunters discovered Ciudad Perdida in 1972. Shortly after, valuable artifacts such as ceramic urns and gold figurines emerged on the black market, prompting archaeologists to travel to the site in 1976. Experts reconstructed the settlement between then and 1982, before the long-running Colombian armed conflict rendered it unsafe to visit. Today, the Lost City is considered safe after reopening to tourism in 2005. The Colombian Army patrols the area, and now everyone who wants to can visit the Lost City. Krakow. Located on a summit 1,312 feet tall, about 25 miles inland in southern Italy's Matera province, the ghost town of Krakow dates as far back as the 8th century BC. The Greeks moved in around 540 AD, calling the town Monte d'Oro. But little is known about Krakow's early days, and it's most famous as a medieval town, during which time it remained largely under feudal control. During the 13th century, the city flourished with a castle and a university. Over time, the city got even better. 4 palazzi, or palatial buildings, emerged by the 15th century, and Krakow also became known for its wonderful churches. Krakow's population peaked at over 1,700 residents in 1532. The plague struck the town the following century, causing hundreds of deaths, but Krakow proved resilient and stuck around for a few more centuries. A series of unfortunate events began taking a serious toll on the settlement's social and economic conditions during the late 19th century. Cholera epidemics, strained trade relations, and war with France, plant disease that killed grapes, plummeting agricultural prices, earthquakes, landslides, and widespread civil unrest all contributed to Krakow's ultimate downfall. Many residents left for economic opportunities in North America. The remaining inhabitants were relocated to the nearby village of Krakow Pesquiera starting in 1963 due to the ever-present dangers caused by landslides. Today, the site is open to tourists. The Krakow Society offers guided tours led by members with close personal ties to the former town, helping to bring its history alive. Sewell Ghost Town. Informally known as the City of Stairs, Sewell is a former mining town that sits over 7,220 feet above sea level. Located in the Chilean Andes, directly above the world's largest underground copper mine, it was built on a steep, barren slope. The remote abandoned settlement is only accessible by walking or hiking there. The Braden Copper Company constructed Sewell to house mine workers after finding copper reserves in the region. There was a lot of copper, but it was very hard to get to. It's nicknamed the City of Stairs after the Escalera Central, a large central staircase that led from a nearby railway station to the town. The houses were painted in vibrant hues as a cheerful contrast to the dreary backdrop of the high-altitude environment. To prevent residents from being overtaken by boredom, the company built shops, a social club, playgrounds, and a movie theater. Sewell peaked in 1960 with a population of over 15,000. Over the years, two major tragedies, an avalanche and a fire, claimed hundreds of lives. El Humo, or the smoke, killed 355 mine workers when a fire broke out at El Teniente mine. To this day, it's considered Chile's worst ever metallic mining accident. But Sewell's demise ultimately resulted from the nationalization of the mining industry under the Allende government. The newly established National Copper Corporation of Chile began moving families out of Sewell in 1977. Once everyone was gone, it started demolishing the town. But the Chilean government saw Sewell as worth saving for history's sake and halted its destruction. It declared the town a national monument in 1998, and in 2006 it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Today, what's left of Sewell, including 50 restored buildings, stands as one of the best preserved company mining towns in the world. Le Old Town and Palace. The former royal structure known as Le Palace and the settlement it overlooks, called Le Old Town, survive as one of just a few rare examples of an intact urban Himalayan settlement. Located in the Indian Himalayas in the Ladakh region, the first fortifications at Leh included a small royal residence and 3 Buddhist temples, built during the 15th century. Built along the mountain ridge high above the town, the place had a great view of the land below. Leh became the Kingdom of Ladakh's capital at the turn of the 17th century. During this time, King Senge Namgyal built the 9-story structure now known as Leh Palace, as well as massive earthen walls that surrounded the old town. The royal family lived in Leh Palace until the mid-19th century, when they fled following the invasion and conquest by Dogra forces. Very little of the palace's original interior survives today, and the structure is in a serious state of decay. During its better days, the royal family lived in the palace's upper floors, while stables and storerooms made up much of the lower levels. The palace houses a museum featuring a collection of artifacts, including jewelry, ornaments, ceremonial dresses, crowns, and intricate, brightly colored paintings called Thangka, which date back over 450 years. Visitors are welcome throughout the structure and on the roof, where they can catch a glimpse of the panoramic surroundings once enjoyed by the region's elite. People still live in the old town surrounding Leh Palace, but much has changed since its glory days. After roads were constructed during the 1960s, effectively shutting down former trade routes, the town's gates and walls were mostly demolished. Around 200 stone and timber houses still stand within what's left of the 17th century walls. Many wealthier residents ultimately left due to the struggling infrastructure, including a substandard water supply and inadequate drainage facilities, leaving the remaining, less fortunate inhabitants to maintain Leh's surviving historic structures. A lack of funding, flash floods, and other factors have contributed greatly to the site's architectural decline. The Archaeological Survey of India is currently working to restore the palace before its crumbling ruins are lost to history. Thanks for watching! Have you ever visited any of these places? Would you like to learn about more fascinating, remote, abandoned settlements throughout the world? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!